to Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by Encore Business Group / EBG Auction House. We might talk about that a little bit with Aaron, but happy Sugar Cookie Day. I don't know that we're going to talk about that with Ron here, because it's always tough, Aaron, because we try to celebrate the thing of the day, but I mean, they've got 5 hours. They've got T-minus 5 hours to accomplish whatever the thing of the day is, if we celebrate the current thing of the day. So if we said, hey, it's National Sugar Cookie Day, they've got 5 hours to run out and get a sugar cookie, plus they've got to listen to the show in the meantime. So I feel like we've had our first request. So Ron's on the board. Shayne's not in today. He is molding the next great kickers of America here. He's got a camp actually this weekend in Cincinnati, so check him out if you're in that area, or if you're interested and you're a specialist wanting to learn from the great Shayne Graham. He'll be there on Saturday, but he's there getting prepared for that. So it's just Ron and I in studio, but we'll have a pretty good guest list here. We got Tim Selgo coming on at 7:15. Then Dr. Michael Williams of Williams Chiropractic, a show sponsor, will come in. And I've been wanting to do this for a while. We're going to do a little bit of a medical crossover. We're going to have him in studio. He's more of an internal health specialist and chiropractor. And then we're going to have friend of the show, Dr. Jimmy Liao, on as a guest. So Dr. Williams and I will talk to him, and then I'll feel very dumb about medical issues during that segment, Ron, because I don't know nearly as much as those two. But the real thing that we have to get to is the fact that we've had a request for the thing of the day. Since this one is almost over, one of the fellow hosts / producers at the station, Jeff Isaac, has said, hey, tomorrow is National French Fry Day. So I think we need to get people prepared for National French Fry Day. What do you think of that?
Definitely.
So we have a couple different directions we can go here, because just French fries, you could go, what's your favorite French fry? Like, do you like McDonald's French fries, Burger King, etc.? You could also go favorite way to have a French fried potato. I'm getting broader as I go here, Aaron.
Yep.
So you got French fried potato. So you could go, that you could throw in the tater tots. You could have kind of a hand cut fry versus a crinkle fry versus a small thin fry, shoestring fry. You got a lot of options in that category. Then we could extrapolate it out more and say favorite potato-based side. Now you're opening it up to baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, scallop potatoes, all of that stuff. So my question to you is, the other thing is that we could do is we could also say preferred dip, because I think ranch is nipping at the heels of ketchup for people to dip their fries into. Not as much here in Michigan, but I'm seeing that more in the South and other places. But some of my friends in Michigan do it too. So that's a bunch of things I just threw at you. What category would you like to reside in first?
Man, that's tough. You could go any way, really. I mean, I love French fries. I love potatoes. So anything, like we were just talking about that in studio with loaded baked potato. I probably right now I'm gonna stick with, just because I had this recently, chili cheese fries from Sonic. Don't know why.
Okay.
That was the most recent thing, so that's the one I'm going to go with.
That was an off-the-board pick for me. I don't know that I know Sonic's fries very well. I think I've maybe had them once, but I can't even picture what...
I drive past it pretty much every day, so that's...
what type of fry are they? Are they just like a regular fry, or are they a different cut?
A crinkle cut,
They're a crinkle cut? Okay. Well, because we haven't even mentioned the waffle fry, sweet potato fry.
Or what are those? The Checkers fries?
Yep. I don't even know what those are. They're dipped in something.
I don't know what they are, I like them.
A lot of things that Dr. Williams probably would prefer me not to eat. That's how I view that. With this, he's a good one. I'm glad we have two doctors on for National French Fry Day, because we'll get their takes on the French fries. Because thinking about that, especially with the Checkers ones, seem the most questionable to me because they're very flavorful. So that makes me nervous.
Yeah,
that they're doing something to them. They're juicing those fries somehow. But yeah, we've got waffle fries. I didn't even think about that. Some people prefer sweet potato fries. They don't even want the regular potatoes. They want the sweet potato.
It's a healthier option though, so maybe that's probably why. Maybe I got to start doing that too because I was like, I eat quite a bit. I got to lose some weight, so I was like, maybe I got to go with like sweet potato fries.
I feel like I'm giving some of the producers a complex here because I always talk about the thing of the day, which usually involves food, much to the chagrin of some listeners. But I feel like some of you guys, when I make you talk about food, you're like, oh man, I really got to rethink my food habits. But it's not to put anybody on blast here.
Oh no.
Because you're getting in shape, you're working out. I mean, you just told me what you did today. You did like 18 athletic activities today.
Yeah, work and then went and worked out with my brother at the Y, and then I was at football practice for coaching, and was running around during that too. So, I'm getting there.
So you've earned those French fries. You can have them.
Yep.
So was that? Wait, you say you had those today or yesterday?
Yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I had them recently. That was probably the last like fast food thing I had, and trying to lay off of that. But
you're probably too young to remember this place. But do you remember a place called Get 'em and Go?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
You'd be like right at the. I mean, you could have gone there as a kid, but I think it went out around when I was like maybe in high school or maybe just after. So I don't remember when it actually didn't exist anymore.
Yeah, because I want to say, wasn't that by? And to be specific, but it's like it's over there on Division, or do they have more than one location?
I think they had more than one.
Because I remember there was one actually right by Godwin. High school, like right down the street. I forgot what it's called now, but it's changed to a bunch of different things. But
that wouldn't surprise me. The one I was familiar with and frequented very often was on East Paris. I think it's a Big B now, but for the local folks that are following this. But yeah, Get 'em and Go. They had a chili cheese fry there. That's why I thought about it. That was one of my favorites too. They had the cheap hamburgers, but they were really good. Yeah. And they were like 30 cents a piece.
Yep.
And
it reminds me of Hot Now.
It was kind of like the Hot Now. It was very similar to that, but I liked Get 'em and Go better. And so when they brought back the Hot Now, I was like, would they bring back the Get 'em and Go? I want that back. That would probably
someone bring that back, please.
Yeah. That's that's what we're imploring you, audience. If you have something to do, maybe bring back Get 'em and Go. I think the nostalgia would carry them. I mean, we can already support however many fast food restaurants in general. We were talking about this on Fried Chicken Day, which was Monday, because I mean, how many fried chicken places do we have here? It's like 10 different ones.
Yep.
And we're in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're not even in the South or anything.
Nope.
And so I feel like we could support a Get 'em and Go. Yep. I think I like this as a route of advocacy on the show.
Yep.
I think we need to stick with that.
Hey, I mean, if they brought back Hot Now, they got to bring that back now too. So it's the nostalgia, all the old. Well, I'm gonna say old, but the people who've been around.
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest host here. We have already established this. I'm the oldest sports host.
You're the oldest. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Steve is 39. Yeah, and 39. I'm 43. So, so I'm the oldest one. Steve's aging like fine wine here, and but no, I like the Get 'em and Go idea. I think this is a perfect one to have while we have Dr. Williams on, because we're advocating to bring back the type of food that he's trying to abolish from people. So very, very ironic here. Okay, it always kind of blows my mind because I mean, I played football. I didn't play it well and I didn't play it very long, but I did do the 2-a-days. But you guys do 2-a-days so early. Were you doing 2-a-days or is it single practices
it's just
right now?
Single practice, okay. And even like with us, and I don't know what the other schools do. Maybe we go a little bit easier on them. But like our quote unquote 2-a-days, it's really just instead of a 2-hour practice, it's a 3-hour practice. It's not like what it was back in the day. But to be fair though, too, I was just actually talking to one of our assistant coaches, who was actually ironically he's one of my assistant coaches, but he coached me and both my brothers in middle school. And we were talking about how, like, even back in the day, like, I mean, now it's like as soon as we get, like, they get that week off after school ends, and then it's like right
Man.
into it. It's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's weightlifting. Tuesday, Thursday, it's either, some type of like team practice or it's a 7-on-7. And it was like back when I played, it was mostly just like you'd work out, you'd had your workouts until like after the 4th of July, and then you get into like some practice stuff, maybe some 7-on-7s, but also we didn't play that well. So
well, but that kind of begs a couple questions. I feel like the one question is, you're talking about not playing that well. I didn't play that well either, but it didn't matter how many practices I would have done. It wouldn't have helped me. But I wonder, because I don't know how much competitive advantage there is from practicing that much, because I imagine most of the competitive schools, quote unquote, have kind of adopted that schedule. Because even my nephew, who plays here locally, plays at Sacred Heart, and it's a smaller school that never really had a football program, and they're basically, their practice schedule is basically year round at this point. They've got a pretty serious coach. He used to play overseas, and he's a pretty good coach. But it is amazing that that's the expectation now. And the other question I would have based on that is, what is this going to mean for the kids going forward? Because their lives are so pre-programmed, so young now. And I remember some of my classmates that really played a lot of sports, like 3-sport athletes, stars, that really got their identity from those sports. They got to college and they kind of went, wait, I'm not the big man on campus anymore. Yeah. I'm not the star athlete. I'm not burning all these calories. Speaking of all the food that you can eat when you're in college, I'm not burning all these calories anymore. And their lives really changed because they didn't know what to do, and they had been told what to do for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, that's probably one of the biggest adjustments for a lot of kids, especially that are very, like, I played 4 different sports in high school, and I wasn't the only one even in my own school. So you gotta think all these other kids in these other schools that they play sports year round. Everything's involved around their sport or their sports, that by the time when you realize you get into college and it's not the same, obviously, it's kind of a shift in identity, because you're so tied into being the athlete of the school. And then obviously after, at some point we all got to hang up the shoes or cleats or whatever it is. And then it's having an adjustment and figuring out what your path is besides sports, because that's all you know. And then, obviously now it seems like it just keeps getting more and more serious with, the kids just, that's all they want to do,
Well, it occurred to me. I never really thought of it this way till you were talking about it, because you played in college. I would not have been able to play in college had I tried.
I rode the bench, to be fair.
Well, but you still got that. You still are a college athlete, and that's to be commended. I was nowhere near it, and I was basically the opposite. I played football freshman and sophomore year. I was a backup lineman. I basically quit because I was better at the marching band, and I did that instead. But I played a lot of sports on the side, and that, I feel like, kind of led to how I programmed my life after that. Like, I was very motivated to be like, okay, I'm gonna plan this. I'm gonna do this next. I'm gonna do that, and I was very motivated. Whereas some of my buddies that had all that planned for them, that motivation they had to kind of work out on their own. They had to kind of figure that out. So some of that is the pre-programming. Some of it is just how we're wired.
Yeah,
too.
And that's the thing too, because even like now, it's like getting involved in all that. I'm one of those people, and I don't really like just to sit down and chill. It's always like something, trying, whether it's something work related or being at the studio or something else. So I think the lessons you do learn from having to multitask between school and sports and stuff like that, I think does kind of help make who you are later on, as far as like work ethic and just how your life is in general.
This feels like a good question for our next guest here, because we're going to have Tim Selgo on after the break. Former Grand Valley athletic director. He's a consultant now. Been wanting to talk to him about a bunch of the issues going on in college, but this seems like a good one for him, because he's always kind of got his finger on the pulse of what's going on out there in the sports world. So we might ask him this after the break, after we ask him what his favorite French fry is. But stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM.
Extra Points is presented by Eric Hull DDS, Aesthetic and General Dentistry in Comstock Park. Dr. Hull and his crew want to make your dental experience a positive one, even if you have some dental anxiety. From a wonderful staff to a newly renovated office building, you should be smiling every time you come in. Not to mention perks like warm blankets, massaging chairs, and heated neck cushions. That's Eric Hull DDS, located just off Alpine Avenue in Comstock Park, and online at greatmismiles.com.
Radio consultants? We don't need no stinking radio consultants.
What is this?
Country with a twist. Jethro FM.
The Grand Rapids Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the city's rich sports history by honoring prominent West Michigan athletes and those who have contributed greatly to sports on a local, state, or national level. A class is elected each year by the Board of Trustees, then honored at an induction ceremony in the fall. The GR Sports Hall of Fame also presents annual events in support of West Michigan athletics and raises funds to support local youth organizations and charities. Follow the Grand Rapids Sports Hall of Fame on Facebook and check out pictures and biographies of all the inductees at grshof.com.
By Griffith, the White Hawk. United we stand under a flag. Into battle we bring the storm.
Welcome back to Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by EBG Auction House. I'm happy to bring on this next guest. I've been wanting to get him on one of my shows for a while. I've talked to him a couple times on our other sports shows hosted by Steve Project typically, but this is Tim Selgo. He's done it all really in the sports world. He's probably best known in this area as the GVSU athletic director, did a great job there for many years, and now he's off on his own for Mammoth Consulting. And so we're very excited to talk to you about a bunch of different things. But as you may know from me crossing over to Steve's show, we like to celebrate the thing of the day on my show, Tim. So tomorrow is National French Fry Day. So I'm curious if Tim Selgo has a favorite type of French fry.
Wow. I didn't expect that question, Ryan, but
that wasn't the first question you expected? I'm so surprised, Tim.
No, I got to tell you, I'm not a big French fry either.
Okay.
But I would say that if I've got to grab some French fries for my grandsons at Mr. Burger, those are the ones I reach into the bag and munch on.
Mr. Burger is a great choice. There's a listener of the show that's going to really like that answer. He's a big Mr. Burger fan. That's I feel like a classic choice. You've been around long enough to remember Mr. Fables too. I feel like that was a favorite back in the day. That's kind of what Mr. Burger reminds me of. But I like that. That's a classic Grand Rapids answer. That's very on brand for Tim Selgo here. But no, we're excited to talk to you here, Tim, because there's a lot of different subjects I wanted to cover. But one of the things that Aaron and I were talking about, because Aaron, my producer today, is a high school football coach, and he was a collegiate athlete. And we were talking about kind of the difference. I was not. I was a terrible athlete. That's why I'm talking about it now, Tim. So that's how it works. But I'm curious what about your take on this, because we were talking about Aaron kind of going through college and everything being very pre-programmed for him. He had to do a lot as a student athlete. You managed a lot of student athletes and oversaw the programs at GVSU. And I was more of a freelancer. I wasn't good at sports, but I liked them, so I played a lot of them, but it was on my own. It was meeting up with my buddies. It was playing basketball at the gym. And I feel like that kind of formulated how I was later. I was very self-oriented and self-motivated. where I wasn't used to anybody planning things for me. I was used to planning for myself. And then some of these athletes, especially nowadays, that's how we got on the subject. You've got even these high school programs that Aaron's football program gets 1 week off in the summer, and then they're back to football here. So I'm curious how you've seen this evolution and kind of what your thoughts are of the intensity, the rising intensity of youth sports, and what that will do when these youngsters become adults.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Ryan. And I go back, I celebrated my 50th high school reunion this summer. So that's how far back I go. I was a kid that grew up. My dad was a high school teacher and coach. So I've been in athletics my entire life. And it certainly has changed as the years have gone by. But I will tell you that although there's been change, there's still numerous positive things that come from sports and kids playing sports. Now, the big concern today that I think is burnout. Too many coaches, usually in the AAU or club coaching circuit, try to direct these kids to play only their sport. And that's not good. That's not good for high school athletes. But more importantly, that's not good for the kid. Playing multiple sports, I've been involved in college athletics for 46 years. And college coaches are looking for multi-sport athletes. They want kids that have that athleticism. They want kids that have that competitiveness. Because if a kid can play more than one sport at the high school level, the chances are he or she is probably pretty darn competitive. And that's what they're looking for. And the kid that just focuses on one sport only, which we have seen perhaps in the past 20 to 30 years more than ever, runs some great risks. Number one, mentally burnout. And number two, physical injuries and burnout. I mean, if you continue to repeat the same things over and over again, you're going to have some physical problems. The cross-training that comes from a kid that plays high school football, and then in the winter is either in basketball or wrestling, and then in the spring is either in baseball or track. Are you kidding me? That's gold. That kid's getting all kinds of great development as an athlete. More importantly, that kid's helping his high school athletics programs out and has got a little bit more balance in his or her life. So we can go on and on about that, but that certainly is a major difference. Now, I will tell you this: at the collegiate level, college athletics is a grind. It's a grind. I don't care what level you're at, whether it's Division I, the Power Four, Division II, Grand Valley Ferris, Division III, Hope, Calvin, NAI, Cornerstone, and Aquinas. If you want to play college athletics, you better be dedicated. You better really you better really love your sport, because it's going to be much more of a grind than high school athletics. It was 50 years ago, Ryan, when I played college basketball at Toledo. It was a grind. One difference, though, at that time, we went home for the summer. We went home in the summer because you got a summer job. There were a lot of summer jobs for college-age kids there. A lot of kids in Michigan went and worked for the Big Three in the factories, and, I read electric meters for Tulio Edison. That doesn't exist today. So times have changed. So kids have more of an opportunity in the summer to go to summer school, which isn't a bad thing. And they do train, but if they can get away from it for a while, I think that's healthy for them. So a lot of things have changed, man, in my lifetime in athletics. Some for the good, some I would say not for the good. But one thing that has driven all of it, Ryan, and that is money. The amount of money that exists today in sports in this country is off the charts. Today, competitive athletics at the youth level, high school level, college level, and pro level comprise 6% of our country's gross domestic product. It's its own entity now. It's not just a part of the entertainment sector. Sports is its own economic sector. And I probably back when I was in high school and college, it was maybe 1%, maybe. So that changes everything, right? I mean, I've got grandsons. They're involved in all sports. My little guys are in baseball now. They're on the all-star team. They all got great uniforms. They all got these huge bags with 2 bats and whatnot. And I remember going to games when I was a kid their age with my spikes tied together over my shoulder and a glove. So, but times change, and again, I think a lot of it has been good. The kids are active in sports is a good thing. Overall, it's a good thing physically for them, and mentally and socially. But you just got to be careful of burnout today.
There's a ton of great points in there, and I want to kind of extrapolate on a couple. The first, I'm going to extrapolate on, you had a great statistic about the sports being 6% of the GDP for the U.S. I just, while you were talking, decided to check maybe what countries are 6% of the U.S.'s GDP. So basically the sports in the U.S. are equivalent to the GDP of Canada.
Yeah.
that kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah. It does.
Even more, but that's wild. That's a great stat. And you're right. I mean, that does drive everything. I think of, I want to go back to the kind of dual sport athlete thing, because I see this a lot watching sports. You can tell sometimes when guys haven't necessarily done that cross training. You can tell by the way they move and the fluidity or lack thereof of their movements. And I mean, I feel like Ferris is really a great example with this. It makes me think of Trinidad Chambliss, who now is kind of a local kid made good here with starting here in Forest Hills and then going to Ferris, doing well there, winning the championship. And now, I mean, he would have gotten drafted very high this year had he gone out. He wanted to come back to school and have a now approved year at Ole Miss, but he's likely going to end up in the draft. But that was a kid that they recruited that obviously nobody else was on at that time. And part of the reason they recruited him was because he was so multifaceted.
Yeah, he's an athletic kid, very athletic, which made him, have great success at Ferris and then Ole Miss. And he wanted to stay in college one more year because, frankly, Ryan, he's probably going to make more money as a quarterback at Ole Miss than he would, his first year or so in the NFL, and gain another year's experience in the SEC. So, that paradigm in college athletics has really changed. When you think about the basketball players that, are suing to get one more year. Why? Because they're getting paid a lot of money. And, it's really made things different. It's made for a lot of lawsuits for the NCAA, which has made life, tough within the NCAA. Chambliss was one that went to court and won in Mississippi to be able to play one more year. But, a lot of those things overshadow the athletic accomplishments of these young men and young ladies too, because they're just, the money is so big that the off the field stuff and machinations that are going on kind of distract from the play. Now, when you get these teams on the field and you watch them play, oh my goodness, it's fun. I mean, you want to talk about big money. I'm not trying to change the subject here, but we got a perfect example this month with the World Cup. It's major money, that entire tournament. The prices they're charging. I mean, England played Mexico at Mexico earlier this week. There are 44 million viewers on television. That's the most ever to watch a soccer game, or football as they call it in Europe. And I saw something, Ryan. I won't quote me on this, but it sure seemed to be that the average ticket price was $4,300. Now, when you multiply that times 87,000 seats, I did it. It's over $300 million just in ticket revenue.
Amazing.
For that one game. And that's incredible. That's why it's 6% of gross domestic product in America. When you add all that up, from Super Bowls to baseball, I'm watching MLB beginning on my screen right now, 3 games at once. And, the volume of money has just changed the paradigm at every level. Certainly the collegiate scene right now in the Power 4 level it's crazy, quite honestly. there's reports of teams with $40, $50 million payrolls in football only. Well, they got to find a way to pay that, and not going to be easy.
I want to talk about that paradigm shift a little bit here. We're going to take a quick break, but then talk about that because it's an intriguing subject matter that is ever evolving here, and so you're a great person to talk to about that. But we'll come back with Tim Selgo and talk about the ever changing sports landscape and college sports landscape after the break. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. To Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by EBG Auction House. Coming back here with Tim Selgo, talking about really the landscape as a whole in college sports primarily, but the sports landscape. And it is really ever evolving, Tim, because you talked about kind of that paradigm shift and the idea that that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because it seems like a lot of the articles that I read nowadays, especially involving the NCAA and college sports as a whole, it's kind of hard to understand really what's driving all of this other than the money, because it doesn't feel like there's enough people in charge. And then I went to Indiana University and am an alum from there, and we've got the Brandon Sorsby thing with the gambling elements. We've got the NIL stuff, like you said, that now these are heavy duty payrolls that would way outperform old payrolls from the NFL. You've got teams investing in AI to increase their funds that they can pay for NIL. There's just all these different threads to go down, but it just kind of seems like in the most developed society that we have here in 2026, it's like the Wild West as much as it ever has been.
It is the Wild West right now in college sports. Now, the Protect College Sports Act, if Congress would address it and pass it, can bring some sanity back to it. I don't know that it's perfect, but it's something that can get some boundaries and bring some sanity back. Now, you're asking Congress can't agree on anything to get something done before the midterms, which, the posturing and all that will happen in the midterms is ridiculous. So who knows if that will pass? But you're right. Right now, it's really not good. In college athletics, over the years, if you looked at the top 20, the final AP poll in the top 20 football, 60 years ago to today, pretty much comprises the same cast of characters. Once in a while, BYU jumps in there, and then West Virginia, and then, Kansas State will pop up there once in a while. But pretty much, we all know the cast of characters that are going to be in the top 20 or in that conversation. And that's going to hold true in this era of NIL. Texas and Ohio State are spending a lot of money. Now, your alma mater, Indiana, changed that, though. They changed that. Because one of the things that's still true and will always be true in sports, I give Curt Cignetti a lot of credit because he can really teach the game. And even though in this era of going out and recruiting other four-year college players to come to your program, as they did and many others, in Michigan basketball, 5 one-year starters, right? All 5 were transfers. Still, Dusty May and Curt Cignetti had to do a great job of getting them to play together, play as a team, teaching them how they wanted to play and what would be successful. And lo and behold, they both ended up champions. So that hasn't changed. You got to have talent. The way to garner talent has changed. It's not just great high school recruits now. In fact, high school athletes are being under-recruited right now because at the Power 4 level, they're going at the best players that are in the group of 5 and, the Mid-American Conference and so on. And those people then go after the best at Ferris and Grand Valley. And so it's a trickle-down effect throughout the thing. So there's a little bit better high school talent available for small college athletics and 2-year college athletics and so on. But that, it's always been true that at the Power 4 level, the blue bloods, if you will, they've always had a lot of money, but they've always had great coaches, legendary coaches, made it happen at those levels. And that's always going to be true, because you can, gather up as much talent as you want, but if you can't put it together, somebody can't teach them. And I mean, I really like Dusty May. I always watched him at Florida Atlantic and then in Michigan. I was highly impressed with the way Michigan played the game this year with 5 new starters. They played as a team. They shared the ball, and those guys played defense. I mean, it was nice to have Mara back there at 7'3" with a wingspan of about a 7'8" guy blocking shots. But, man, did they get after you on defense. And to be able to do that is still going to matter. So it's just changed the recruiting a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot. And the money thing is getting out of hand. That's where the Wild West comes into play. No offense to Indiana, but when you got Mark Cuban and some of those billionaires, you can get some things done, quite honestly. Texas Tech is a prime example. I think you mentioned Brandon Sorsby. There's a classic example, Ryan. If we were back in the era of just a full ride, and Brandon Sorsby was at Texas Tech, and his gambling investigation came about, he would have been gone, and it would never have been a news story. But they paid him $5 million, or supposedly $5 or $6 million to be their quarterback. So now they got that much invested. So of course they're going to do everything they can to try to keep the guy playing, right? But if that's what's changed. That the courtrooms, the legal community has made a lot of money off college athletics in the last 6 to 7 years.
And that precedent that they set with that ruling is going to be kind of interesting, because we both know that those things go off of case law and past judgments. And so when the next thing comes up, because we know this is going to come up in some form or iteration again, and I'm just curious to see how that looks. And now that we have that one on the books, even if it's not in Texas, it's still that's what happened with Sorsby. Yes, some other things happened afterwards, but that's the ruling we got. And I mean, obviously, just like NIL, it is going to continue to get more complicated. So is this gambling thing, because it being so close and then being so close to the flame, it's going to be tough for nobody to get burned.
Well, gambling is the one. I mean, that was you really crossed the Rubicon when you let somebody who bets on his own team play. I mean, that's the one thing in sport that the professional ranks and so on work extremely hard to prevent, because that goes into the integrity of the game. If people think it's WWF and the decision has already been decided, I mean, you hear the conspiracy theories on the NBA and all that all the time, but that they've got to protect the integrity of the game to make sure it's as successful as it is. And that was one thing they just could not allow. They could not cross that line. And I was glad to see that, to be honest. I was glad to see the Big 12, all the other ADs. I was at the Athletic Directors National Convention called the NACA Convention when that came down, that he was going to get an injunction to play. And there were Big 12 ADs there, and they were hot. I mean, I walked past a couple of them. They were on their phones, and you could see they were headed to their room to get on conference calls or Zoom meetings to discuss this, because they were irate. And I was glad to see that, to be honest with you. It's time somebody get a little bit upset about somebody trying to get off, even though they've done something that you just can't do.
Well, that's how these things change too, is public outrage from the people in positions of power and everything too. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad we could have you on the show to cover it in general, because like you said, it's ever evolving, and so I want to continue to kind of check in with you if you're available and talk about these subjects, because they're so multifaceted and dense. So we appreciate you coming on, and be sure to tell people what you're up to now and where they can follow what you're doing here.
Well, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you having me on. I've been for the last 11 years now. I've been a consultant in college sports, college athletics, non-Division I college athletics, Division II, Division III NAIA 2-year college programs. I work with athletic directors on leadership development for them and their staffs. I do strategic planning for college athletics departments, and I do athletic department assessments on occasion for schools as well. So I've really enjoyed a second career here in college athletics. I was blessed to have a wonderful career at the University of Toledo in Grand Valley, and it provided a foundation for me to use my experiences to help others. That's my mission today. I want to help others to use all the great experiences and people I've been around and maybe help some other young people now be successful. So I hope I can do that, and I'd be more than happy to come on anytime. I appreciate you letting me have a chance to talk sports. I always like to talk sports. Unfortunately, a lot of it is legal and money today. But anytime I can talk sports, I love doing it. So thanks for having me.
Anytime. Yeah, we're excited to have you back. And like you said, there are those deeper issues, but that's why we need somebody like you to help us cover them, because they are so deep and tough to kind of unravel. So you're definitely helping people with your sports knowledge, and you're helping to educate us, and we appreciate it. And we'll look forward to having you back on again soon.
I'm glad to do it. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Thanks, Tim. We'll talk to you later.
You bet. Mm-hmm.
Thanks to Tim Selgo. Yeah, great stuff there. It's a complicated subject, but it'll be fun to kind of unwrap it with him as we go. We're going to go from one complicated subject to another. We've got Dr. Williams as a special guest host in studio. He just arrived. He's ready to go, and hopefully, he doesn't know this yet, but hopefully after the break, he'll be ready for me to ask him what his favorite French fries are. That's probably none is the answer, but stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by EBG Auction House. Speaking of them, we have another sponsor in studio. He's been a great sponsor and really a great asset to me, because when we figured out this sponsorship a little while ago, I said, well, do you think you can fix my bum shoulder? And he fixed a lot more than that, I would say. I've lost 45 pounds since I started seeing him, and my shoulder is way better, mainly because it's having to bear less weight and less pull by the body, probably, and probably because I'm eating less things like French fries. But without any irony, we're going to ask Dr. Michael Williams of Williams Chiropractic. Happy to have him. What do you have a favorite French fry? I know you don't eat that stuff often, but maybe occasionally.
No, actually, when we talk about favorite ones, I remember when I was a kid, a buddy of mine and I we made our own one time, and they still stand out as the best. We didn't even know what we were doing. This was long before the time where you could look up a recipe or anything, but we were like, seemed too hard. Let's just heat up some oil and cut some potatoes up and see what happens. And
this sounds safe.
These couple idiots stumbled into like the greatest French fries ever. And what we didn't know, though, just a tip here, pro tip, is don't use plastic utensils trying to get those fries out of hot oil, because we found out that they melt.
Was that the secret flavor that was added then? The plastic?
Must have been, yeah,
that
those
made
microplastics that mix in.
Made it even healthier.
Some
That's
forever
great.
chemicals with your French fries.
That would be good, though. I mean, a homemade one, that's kind of what I like. I'm really actually not a big French fry fan. I didn't eat those. That wasn't one of the things I really missed when I gave that up when you helped me refine my diet. But I do like kind of a fresh cut French fry, like almost a homemade. That's the only one that I really will even eat. But there's a lot of different options. I'm waiting for somebody to choose sweet potato fry. I thought you might go sweet potato fry or something cooked in like a beef tallow.
Those are, yeah. So if you could find the tallow, that's always, and it used to be, that was, if you went back to the original recipe from McDonald's, that's what they were. It was potatoes, salt, and beef tallow. And those actually were not that bad. You know, I mean, you wouldn't want to have that as a staple of your diet, but it wouldn't have been too much. It wouldn't have caused too much trouble. And so if you could find that, if we do it once in a while, Actually, after I told my kids the story about making them when I was a kid, they said, let's try it. And so we did avocado oil. We fried some potatoes in avocado oil, and that turned out pretty good too, though. So I don't know if I've seen any places commercially that use avocado oil. There's some potato chip brands and some tortilla chip brands out there that use them, but I know there's a few restaurants that use beef tallow in their fryers, so you can get a better option. It's funny. Speaking, we were just having this. My kids and I were having this conversation about better options versus things that are good for you. Just because saying something is better for you than something else, better doesn't necessarily mean good.
Relativity is key there.
Sometimes that can be like picking the best smelling pile of dog manure in your backyard.
Well, I know I have family members that do this. They'll put lettuce on something and they'll say, well, it's got lettuce on it. Well, yeah, but the rest of it was really very bad for you.
Yeah.
It's not helping.
It's free. You can eat as much of that as you want now.
But that's one of the things that makes me think of one of the first things that we kind of talked about in the sports realm, because one of the struggles that I had that you've helped me with, and I was kind of already on the path to it, but you've helped me more, was I had a decent amount of plantar fasciitis, and I moved to a flat shoe, a zero drop shoe. And we were having a conversation about, well, kind of makes sense that back in, say, the 70s, when the shoe of choice in basketball was the Converse All-Star, the Chuck Taylor Converse All-Star, and that's what Dr. J was dunking in. And I thought, well, okay, if it's good enough for him and they weren't blowing out any Achilles or ACLs because that stuff was way lower back then it's got to be the shoes, right? Like the campaign. But then you adeptly informed me, well, okay, there's been another change that's happened basically since that era. Like, not that the shoes don't matter or don't play a part in it, but the other thing that's changed basically from that era, when you're talking about kind of the beef tallow being part of even McDonald's French fries, which your kids would call good, but they're relatively good compared to other things, I suppose, compared to the current French fries from McDonald's, I suppose. But the other thing that has changed is the food. Our diets have dramatically changed, not only in what we choose, but what we have to choose from.
Yeah, and so one of the interesting things that you and I talked about was how gut health influences and has a direct impact on a muscle that is in the bottom of the foot. So if you start seeing things like plantar fasciitis, one of the reasons it can be there is because the gut is not healthy. And so that opens up another big topic of overall gut health, which is more than just what you're eating, but that is a big part of it. That it's pretty tough to have a healthy gut if you're not putting the right stuff in it to begin with. But that is a big factor. One of the things I look at first, if somebody comes in and complains really of any sort of foot pain, is what's going on with the gut.
That's where it all comes from. I mean, that basically turns into everything. It turns into our energy and all of that. And that's one reason we wanted to have Dr. Williams on, because we're going to have friend of the show, Dr. Liao, on at 8, and he's done a lot of analysis for medical injuries in sports for us, and I think it'll be an interesting conversation of two people that can at least hang with each other. Whenever I'm talking to either of these two, I'm like, oh yeah, I have a body too, and I think I have most of those parts that you're talking about. But it'll be interesting because they kind of have different approaches, but it's two sides of the same coin as far as it all plays into itself. And one of the things that I'll want to discuss with Dr. Liao is the fact that we have injuries in sports. There's more injuries than ever. We're talking about these Achilles injuries in basketball, but you could talk about the Tommy John surgery in baseball. You could look at something like Kirby Joseph's knee, where we still don't really know what's going on with that. And that's one of the things that Dr. Liao's covered. But we do know there's a lot more injuries nowadays. Mm-hmm. And we do know that, well, I'll get you to confirm this, I guess. We do know that the medical industry, I think, has advanced. Obviously, we have access to more things and better care than ever, but we're still getting injured at a much higher rate now. So there's got to be something underneath that's kind of determining that.
Sure. Yeah. And so the big question, what is it? Where's it coming from? And so when I start to kind of examine a patient, that's always the key. I think about somebody like Kirby Joseph, and I would say, all right, if this was related to whatever's happening, if it was related to the game, related to playing, take some time off. Is it healing? Is it getting better? And if the answer is no, then I would say, well, that's probably not where it's coming from. That's probably not the reason. And so then you say, well, okay, what else? Why wouldn't it heal? Well, either it can't because the parts and pieces that are required for healing aren't there, and you got to put them in there, or whatever it is that was making it upset in the first place isn't gone. It may not be what you thought it was. It has to be something else, because if the thing is still there, then the thing that upset it in the first place is still there. And if you don't fix that, you're never going to make it go away. So you got to figure out what it is.
Yeah, you caused it by an internal problem, and now you're trying to help it externally, which is what they're doing. Like, there's been suggestions of surgery, and they're doing some. I think they've done some acupuncture with it, and different things. And not that those things can't help at times or aren't needed at times, but if, like you said, if that underlying problem's still there, then it's just going to be a temporary release.
If the plumbing in your house backs up and floods your basement, you do have a problem in your basement. You got to clean that up. But everybody that has been through that is going to ask, where did this come from? And how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? Because if you just clean up the mess, you haven't totally solved the problem. And you're setting yourself up for a second round if you don't do anything about it.
A plumbing analogy seems very apropos, I guess, in this case with the internal health thing. But it is interesting. I mean, we've gotten into a kind of a niche with covering medical analysis here on the show and injuries, because I feel like as sports fans, what we typically do is, oh, well, yeah, just okay, he got hurt, that's what happens, deal with it, he'll be back. And that's kind of too basic for me, that we don't really cover sports that way. The rest of the sports, oh, he dropped the pass, oh, he did this one singular action. We like to go to the root cause of the different things that are happening. And it's the same thing with injuries. It's like we're just kind of shrugging our shoulders at, oh yeah, kids are getting Tommy John at 18, 19 years old. We're blowing out all these leg muscles and connectors in the leg, and we just go, well, okay, they're young, they'll heal. But obviously that means that they're having a problem with their body way earlier than they should, or that they might not even have if they were maybe fueling themselves differently.
Sure. Yeah. So if the way I always approach it is, if the body is compromised, you're going to have one of two scenarios. Either it's going to lose performance or it's going to get injured. So the question is, where or how is it compromised? You got to figure that out. And the ones that lose performance are maybe the lucky ones, because they don't have an injury, but it's just whichever path their body is going to take. And sometimes they follow the path of injury, and sometimes they follow the one where it's like, this is as much as you're going to get out of me, and you're not going to see any more no matter how hard you push it.
And we knew the value of nutrition, I think, to a degree already, because I've talked to some athletes. Zach Zenner comes to mind. He was a player for the Lions. That was kind of a fringe player. It was a surprise that he made the team. Then he was a surprise starter for a little bit there, and he was able to basically maximize his innate ability by trying to prepare his body as well as possible. So now he's an agent, he's a nutritionist, and so he advises young guys like, hey, yeah, you might be better than I ever was, but you still got to maximize this part. Otherwise, you're not going to have the elongated success that you want as an athlete. But that's just to get to, okay, yeah, make sure your muscle to fat ratio or your body mass is correctly allocated. Not necessarily this is also giving you longevity because you're not pulling everything out quite as much.
Yeah. Yeah, and so one of the next steps that I look at, that equation is absolutely correct, that what you put in is critical. But then I'm able to look a little further at the ability for the body to digest that good food. Because if it's not being digested, then the body is going to be compromised as well. And I remember he was, maybe you could consider him a power lifter. He was a patient, came in. He had been diagnosed with Crohn's disease, a lot of gut issues, and what it really came down to was that he was, in order to maintain the amount of muscle mass that he was trying to maintain to get to the weights that he was trying to lift, he was consuming so much protein that his body wasn't able to digest all of it. And so he actually drove himself unknowingly into this injury, this digestive distress, because he was forcing so much protein in with the idea that he was supporting his body in the pursuit of lifting heavier and heavier weights, and reached a point where the digestive system said, I can't do what you're asking me to do. So in that case, it wasn't his muscular system, it wasn't the muscles or the skeleton that couldn't match what he was asking it to do. It was the gut's ability to be able to digest all of the protein that was necessary that became the weak link. So in his case, we had to decide, either we have to digest your protein better, or you have to scale back on the lifting. You have to let some of this muscle mass go back to a level that your body can support. And he didn't like that very much. So we helped him with his digestive system, got his protein digested better, and it cleared up the issues that he was having with his intestines, and he was able to continue to progress. It was more, he was driving himself. It wasn't that he was competing in any competitions or anything. He just, that one stood out as a place where what was necessary to be at the level he needed it to be wasn't, his physical body was okay, but the internal parts weren't able to keep up.
That's, I think, why I arrived where I was with you, because I kind of went through a similar stint there and got up pretty high on the powerlifting thing. And yeah, what you're doing to your body is like, okay, wait, even if you're trying to go natural, when you go natural, it's still hard to do it in a truly natural way. So it's interesting stuff. We're going to loop Dr. Liao into the conversation here after the break and continue kind of the medical and injury analysis as it pertains to sports. So stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM.
From the GarbarinoRoofs.com studios.
Country with a twist. Jethro FM. 1530 AM. WYGR Wyoming Grand Rapids. 94.9 FM Grand Rapids. 99.5 FM Lowell. And Jethro South. 980 AM WAKV Otsego Plainwell. 98.9 FM Otsego. And 105.1 FM Kalamazoo. Available worldwide at jethro.fm.
Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by EBG Auction House. I'm excited about this because I've been trying to get the two doctors that are associated with the show on at the same time so that I don't have to bumble my way through the interview like I normally do. I'll be good on the first part, because the first part, as Dr. Liao knows better than anybody, because we basically started this tradition with Dr. Liao. Ironically, he's a doctor, but we started the food discussion with him. Dr. Liao, tomorrow is National French Fry Day. I know you're a meat guy. I know you're into the smoked meats, but if you do have French fries, do you have a favorite type of French fry?
I love French fries. My love of French fries has really increased as I've gotten older. I'm not exactly sure why, but I can eat just a boatload of French fries these days. I make them at home in my own deep fryer. I do a triple fry, so it's extra crispy. I like the curly fries. Those are fun, interesting texture and shape. Regular fries, straight fries are good too. I can't make waffle fries at home, so I have to get those at a restaurant or fast food place somewhere. Those are great too. They have a nice meaty crunch. But I am good with any kind of fried up potato. I love it all.
Dr. Williams is smiling in studio here because he's a sponsor of the show. He's my doctor that I consult, and he's helped me with a lot of my internal health stuff, but he's an internal health specialist and chiropractor. And that's why I wanted to kind of get you two together, because you guys will be able to speak each other's language a lot better than I ever could. But it'll also be interesting to kind of discuss some of these injury issues from multiple perspectives here. But for the record, he did have a favorite French fry, and it was the one he fried at home. I don't think it was a waffle fry though either, Dr. Liao. It was just a regular French fry. Why can't you make waffle fries at home? I want to see you try.
Yeah, I don't have a cutter. I've looked for a cutter that can make that waffle cut, but I can't find it. I don't know if it exists to purchase at home. If you know of a way I can get one of those, I would be very interested in that.
Well, while you guys are losing me in the interview with all of the medical talk, I'll maybe research that for you. That's the only way I'll be of use for some of this. But no, I'm joking, because I am excited about this. I like talking with both you guys about the injury stuff, and we were talking a little bit about, just to kind of fill you in on the part that we've covered here already, Dr. Liao. We were talking in the previous segment about how I kind of had an evolution of where I was looking at my own injury history and health, and I was talking to Dr. Williams about my shoe choice and how I changed to zero drop shoes to help the angle of everything, and how I thought that helped. But then he was kind of referring, because I was referring back to the era where Dr. J was dunking and not really pulling anything in those Chuck Taylor All-Stars. And I thought, well, if they were good enough for Dr. J, and we got these new shoes that are supposed to be way better, why are they not working, and why is everybody pulling their Achilles? Is it just because the advancement of the body, or is it the shoe? But the other thing that's changed since then is the diet. So since you are very focused on food, we talk about food. You're a foodie, a food fan. I'm curious kind of how you take in that change, and if you think that's kind of pertained to how maybe some of the health issues have permeated over the last few decades.
It's possible that dietary nutritional issues are a component of all this. The problem with studying nutrition is it's very difficult to do a good research study on it. There's just so many variables. It's hard to control what people eat. So it's just hard to do a prospective, double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled, all that kind of stuff, study on this kind of thing. Before we get into too much of this, I need to hear about your guys' French fry opinions, because I need some ideas on any way I can expand my French fry empire.
Well, I like that. So we talked about this extensively in the first segment with AA Ron, who's in studio with us. We really did a deep dive, because I wanted to see what type of potato he wanted to kind of explore, because you have different layers to this. You've got French fries, and then you've got a lot of options within that. My favorite, to give you that answer, is I like a kind of a hand cut, fresh cut French fry. That's my favorite. That's the one that I'll always go with, and definitely have a few. The other French fries don't always allure me. But you've got all those different shapes that you talked about. You've got the sweet potato variety. Then you can kind of expand into the tater tots, which isn't a French fry, but it's in the same space. And then you can just go to potato, and then we're getting really out of control, because now we're having to involve things like scalloped potatoes and baked potatoes. But we did refer a little bit to the beef tallow fries that Dr. Williams was talking about that back in the day, that the beef tallow fries were kind of how McDonald's started, I guess, and then now they're a little bit more prominent here and making it back. So he likes, kind of the more homemade ones and the beef tallow one. So that's catching you up, I think, on most of it. Oh, and Aaron chose chili cheese fries. So that's also a variation of this.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Chili fries are fantastic. I had poutine when I went to
there you go.
Green Bay and watched the Lions play there and destroy the Packers a few years ago. That is a fantastic dish. French fries, load a bunch of stuff on the top, cheese, onions, chili, whatever. It can be an entire meal made out of French fries. I like the beef tallow thing. I've never tried that. I typically just fry with soybean oil, canola oil mix, something like that. I should look into a beef tallow. That would add a really nice flavor, I would think.
Dr. Williams, should he switch that out for his cooking?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Give it a try.
I think that's probably one of the more recommended ones. I don't know that I'd be able to taste the difference. Maybe I'd have to have a taste test, because maybe that's what we'll have to do, Dr. Liao, is have a taste test of all these fries.
Yeah, you're welcome to come over, because I hand cut the fries. So you love the hand cut fries?
I'm in.
That's what I make at home. I make them great, extra crispy. I'll get some beef tallow that Dr. Williams is going to ship over to me. Or I'm going to have a French fry feast.
Well, I'm still looking for your balloon here in Grand Rapids, and once I find it, then I'm flying out to see you with the balloon.
Sounds good.
And then we'll have some fries here.
And Dr. Williams, you're invited too, of course.
Oh, fantastic. I'm in.
See, well, yeah, set up a couple plates. You do want to go over to Dr. Liao's house, by the way, because we have talked extensively. That was not a joke. We basically started this segment with him because I realized how much he liked talking about food. So then we would kind of swerve the football audience that was salivating for their medical information from the go-to guy from the Lions, and they were going, okay, with it, here he is, he's on, and then we would spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about the smoked meats that he had the previous occasion.
Seems like a great talk.
Yeah, it's worked well. I think Dr. Liao and I both like it. I haven't gotten any negative feedback from the fan base, so it's a hit, Dr. Liao.
Great, I'm glad to hear that.
But we'll take a quick break and reset, and then I want to kind of come back into the conversation and talk about some of these injuries and get your thoughts on things, get both of your thoughts on things, especially the Kirby Joseph thing, because that is, we've got to unpack that a little bit. We've been trying for a while, but that seems like a good place to start, and then we'll talk about camp and some of the other concerns or areas that you're paying attention to here, Dr. Liao, and go from there. So stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. To Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by EBG Auction House. I was just getting a little tutorial on the life cycle of a fry in certain places, and now I don't know that I'm going to have fries again. But coming back here with Dr. Liao and Dr. Williams here, and Dr. Liao, rather, where I kind of want to start with both you guys is we've got this Kirby Joseph thing. It's multifaceted. It's very layered. They're looking for a solution for him. We don't really know where he's at right now. That this video went viral from the other day, and we keep kind of trying to, I think, read in too much to certain things because we're not getting a ton of information, but I don't think it's because it's tightly held. Some of it is, but it's also they're just looking for a solution. So you've been studying this for a while, Dr. Liao, and I'm curious kind of where you're at with it and what you would do if he came in to you now and said, okay, here's, what I've tried so far, and you'd have to look at his file and do some research, but what are some of the next steps you would take?
Well, the concern with Kirby Joseph is this knee issue has been going on since at least July of last year. So we're talking about something that's been going on for 12 months now. I don't know exactly what he's tried, but he himself has stated that there's no fix. Dan Campbell, when he came out and talked about it, said they're just trying to help with the pain. It's a wear and tear issue, just trying to hope it doesn't wear out as fast. It's not necessarily anything that's going to go away. These are all Dan Campbell's words. So this is something that, based on what they've all been saying, is not something that's fixable. So that's the concern here. They got the best doctors and surgeons looking at this. There's really nothing I would be able to add. Based on everything that they're saying and just reading between the lines of everything, it suggests it's a cartilage issue, a wear and tear cartilage issue. Cartilage is something that doesn't regenerate. It doesn't heal. So it comes down to preserving mileage and preserving further damage to it. So the best thing for him going forward, assuming that's what's going on, is to limit wear and tear on it. And that's what they've been doing since last year. This entire offseason, you haven't seen them do anything. Nothing in OTAs, nothing in minicamp. In training camp, they're going to start testing it, but they might not even start doing that until late in training camp. So it's just hoping that he can get through the season, get through each game, and manage the mileage issue on his knee.
Because they're not really, I get that, and they're not really finding, it doesn't seem like they're finding much. So it's like, well, if they do exacerbate it by him playing, I don't know that they know really how to kind of recoup and heal it, because obviously they haven't been able to heal it. So they're just trying to manage the mileage, which is a little dicey for the longevity of his career, but it's kind of one step at a time, him getting out there and feeling solid on that knee, and then being able to play the way he wants to play, because that's the other factor here.
Yeah, the guy is a superstar safety. 50% of his games in the past 2 years have resulted in an interception. This guy is incredible. He's a game changer, makes plays incredibly at a high rate. So, yeah, we want him on the field. That's why the Lions are carrying him on the team. If this guy wasn't that great, he would have been probably released already. But this guy's a superstar. We'll see how things go during training camp. It's really up in the air right now.
Dr. Williams, you kind of have an inside-out approach to things, so I'm curious. Obviously, same thing as I was saying to Dr. Liao, that you'd have to learn about him, you'd have to do tests on him, and get his file, and we're not going to release any of that. HIPAA won't let us. So even if we had it as intel, we can't release it. But where would you kind of start with what you've seen in the news with him, because it is kind of a tough one. I'm sure you'd have to go through a couple iterations to kind of figure out, because you got to find out the full sheet of music, and then get kind of the things that you were talking about. What's the root cause, and then how do we fix it and move forward?
Yeah, sure. First thing I would do, like I do with all my new patients, is we run the integrated urinalysis panel. The way we look at how his body is at breaking down the things that are coming in. So if there is an issue with being able to get the raw materials in to heal, if there's an issue with too much toxicity building up because he's not eliminating waste well enough, either of those could be at least a hindrance to getting better. Sometimes they can be the thing that will stop healing from happening. So I would start there, and I would be curious then to look at what's going on in his abdomen. There's some muscle contractions. If the intestines are struggling, there are areas of the abdomen that will contract. And what that does is it can distort the pelvis. That can put extra strain on the hips or the knees or the entire chain all the way down through the ankles and the feet. And in the case where something in a knee isn't healing, then I want to know, is there any distortions in another area of the body that could be contributing or putting pressure on the knee, that if we remove that distortion, we remove the pressure off the knee, then the knee would be able to heal.
That's an interesting approach. What do you think of that, Dr. Liao?
Yeah, it is about pressure on the knee. So anything that can be done to help relieve stress and relieve pressure on the knee is a good thing. So I agree that anything that Kirby Joseph could do to take pressure off the knee would be helpful.
Well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this discussion in kind of this way, because I'm no doctor and I have no idea. I may have found your waffle fry cutter though, so I've done my job of this segment here, Dr. Liao. But I'm far from an expert on this stuff, and most of what I've learned is from YouTube. But it is an interesting situation where we've gotten to the point where I don't really remember this in a lot of cases where it's just kind of like he's been seen by a lot of doctors. He's done a lot with that knee, and everybody's kind of throwing their hands up now going, well, now what? And so it needs a unique approach. And so that's why after seeing Dr. Williams myself, I thought, man, yeah, that may be one of the things that we're not looking as much at. We're looking at the external part and not realizing maybe what's putting pressure on that. And so so maybe we can get Dr. Williams in there somehow, Dr. Liao. We got to get this thing fixed. We care about the Lions. Dr. Williams, he's more of an independent doctor. He'll be like one of the concussion doctors. So he's more independent because he doesn't watch a lot of football. But, you know, that maybe we can get him in that blue tent somehow.
Yeah, let's get him in there. We'll sneak him in there and have him do some magic on Kirby Joseph. I like it.
Can both of you guys get in the blue tent? I would feel very comfortable if both you were in the blue tent taking care of Kirby, because that guy that comes out with the suit coat and the sweater combo or whatever he wears, I don't trust him as much as I trust you guys. Do you remember who I'm talking about, Dr. Liao?
I'm not sure who you're talking about. They let a lot of people in those tents. There are people coming in and out of those tents. I don't know who half these people are, so I'm sure we could probably sneak in there. Me and Dr. Williams, I think probably get in there.
There's. I'm trying to search this, but there's a specific one that I'm thinking of, and he has a very specific way of dressing, and he goes out there and every time he goes out there, I don't know anything about the guy. I'm sure he's a great, accomplished doctor and way more accomplished than I am. But that outfit that he's typically wearing, I can't. I'm then like, oh no, this guy's out here again. So, but I would feel just inherently more comfortable with you two in there because I know you, and I feel like you guys would work as a team to fix this.
I agree. Let's do that.
Well, what else? So you've been doing a good job, as you normally do, of covering the off-season injuries here and just the Lions as a whole. What else are you kind of keeping your eye on as they're kind of slow launching this camp? Because I feel like one of the subject matters that always comes up with this is, hey, we don't necessarily need to have, obviously we're not to the contact part yet, but maybe let's not go full bore 100%. And it's hard to do that as a Lions organization because that's kind of where their ballywick is. But it seems like they are a little bit more dedicated to trying to save themselves a little bit more, not just Kirby, but everybody in general.
Yeah, after the past 2 years, it's totally understandable. Everything you've seen them do this offseason has been to get younger, healthier, and more reliable. This offseason, it looks like they've dialed back the intensity of everything, let people rest. For example, like Sam Laporta probably could have been able to practice fully, but he was still very limited, just doing walkthroughs and jog-throughs. And he's a good person to talk to Dr. Williams about because Sam Laporta has a back issue. So Dr. Williams being a chiropractor, maybe he can add some insight into that.
Yeah, I don't know if we've talked about that one much, but yeah, can you kind of lay out the injury history with Laporta?
Yeah, Laporta, a herniated disc was his diagnosis. Now, this disc issue was an accumulation injury over time. So it wasn't a specific incident that caused it. But his last game was November 9th of last year. He ended up having surgery pretty soon after that last game. He's been rehabbing since. It looks like rehab is going fine with no setbacks, but he still isn't up to any kind of full practice or any kind of contact for sure yet. We'll see how he does in training camp. The issue with a herniated disc, he had surgery for it, which typically means you're removing some part of the spinal disc area to relieve pressure off of that nerve. The concern is once he starts full contact football again, is his spine going to get aggravated again? So the surgery might address the current symptoms, but it doesn't address the initial cause of what happened. That would be the concern for mine going forward, is his reliability and durability.
I feel like this is something I talk about a decent amount with Dr. Williams, that because you got kind of two issues I would see here, both what initially caused it, maybe from an internal standpoint, and you always talk about, well, is this person in kind of a situation where they're taking constant contact? And I would say the NFL is a big check in that box.
Yeah, it's I have heard it compared to getting in a car accident over and over and over again. And I wouldn't want to stand in front of any of those guys and let them run into me. So definitely constant contact. One of the things I would look at is when you see the level that the disc was injured, I would look at what else hooks into the spine at that level, and see if there is some disruption or dysfunction in whatever that is. So if it's in the lower back, then we're back to talking about the nerves to the intestines. If it's a little bit higher up, then you can look at some of the other internal organs. And I would be curious to see if there's any evidence of any sort of dysfunction. And this is where we're talking the difference between dysfunction and disease. And I think a lot of times some of these tougher cases, the ones that are a little harder to figure out, is because everyone's looking for disease and they don't have one. And so that all the imaging, all the tests, everything kind of comes back, inconclusive or nothing really. I mean, the herniated disc for sure is a diagnosable problem. But as far as where it came from, then you're looking at, well, what caused it? Where's the disease? Well, there isn't one. So then we have to look differently, and that's what I do in my practice, is look at the dysfunction and see, is there something that is dysfunctional that if you leave it there long enough or let that dysfunction get bad enough, it causes some sort of a catastrophic problem in the body, like a herniated disc. So I would be interested to look and examine him and see if I could find any evidence of dysfunction in some of the other areas that could contribute to spinal distortion, spinal pressure, that would lead to that disc becoming injured because it's getting extra stress over and over and over again.
Dr. Liao,
I like that.
Go ahead.
I like that. It's a very holistic way to think about it. It's great, because you're right that a dysfunction of any kind of internal organ, that affects the whole body. You have a kidney issue, intestinal issue, that's a whole body effect. So if he does have any kind of dysfunction, whether it helps the spine or whether it doesn't help the spine, it's great to address that regardless.
Dr. Liao, I know you kind of do a bit of an assessment of the percentage chance or kind of numbered out of 10 chance of an injury returning, or kind of the concern level with it reoccurring. Where are you at with that with the Laporta thing? Obviously he's on the younger side. His rehab seems to be going well, but to the point about getting hit, we know he's a tight end. He's going to be blocking a lot. He's going to be getting hit. What does that look like on kind of your scale as far as concern, and not knowing maybe some of those underlying factors?
My concern for him coming out of the season was a 9 out of 10 medical concern level. So very high. The only two guys that were higher were Kirby Joseph and Taylor Decker at 10 out of 10. Taylor Decker is already released and possibly retired at this point. The concern with Laporta isn't that he's going to be ready for week one. He's going to be ready for week one. The likelihood he wouldn't be is very low unless he has some kind of setback in training camp. But he should almost certainly be ready for week one. The concern is his durability over time. When he does blocking along the line, which is what a tight end has to do, that causes hyperextension of the back. That puts strain on the back and causes stresses on the back that can cause a disc issue. Once he starts doing that week after week, is his back going to hold up? We've seen many NFL players in the past, including a good comp, which was Rob Gronkowski, have multiple spinal surgeries because the back disc issue kept recurring. So my concern level is low for him for week one, but it's pretty high for him going forward. So we'll just see how that goes the rest of this season.
it'll be interesting to track some of these things. I'm sure we've got a few more cases to cover, so we're going to take another quick break and then come back with the docs here. They're giving us a lot of good advice on the Lions off season and risks and injuries. So we'll come back in studio with Dr. Williams and on the line with Dr. Liao. Stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Shayne Graham's Extra Points with Ryan Walsh, presented by EBG Auction House. Coming back here with Doc Talk. We got to brand this segment somehow, but Doctors Liao and Williams are joining us here for one more segment. And Dr. Liao, I assume, so you were talking about Brian Branch being the other one that's up there. Is that worth a discussion here too? Because I know you've kind of done a good job covering him and what his recovery could look like. It's a little bit more straightforward than, say, his safety partner, but there's still a lot of concern there because there's the guys don't always recover well, especially when it's a speed-based position, and with how hard Branch plays, he's doing everything out there, so I'm sure he's going to be putting pressure on it as soon as he is back.
Yes, his right Achilles rupture in December of last year. You're right that this is a more straightforward issue. He's going to play. He's going to be back at some point. We don't know exactly when. Probably looking at October, November range. It's a little bit disappointing. We haven't seen him doing any kind of sprinting, cutting, jumping workouts. Maybe he has and just hasn't posted videos of it. Fine. But we haven't seen any videos of that over the off season. So we really don't know where he's at right now as far as his rehab. But sometime in October, November is the hope. And as you mentioned, how well he recovers is a big question mark. We've seen good recoveries. We've seen not so good recoveries. Just in the Lions' own backfield over the past few years, Tracy Walker's career basically got ended by his Achilles rupture. Jeff Okudah had an Achilles, but he came back very, very strong the next season. So that was something I put on the positive side. There have also been other very positive recoveries recently. J.K. Dobbins, running back, and Jadarian Price, first-round pick out of Notre Dame this year, had an Achilles rupture in his past. Clearly still able to elevate himself to an elite running back level. So there's a lot of optimism to be had for Brian Branch going forward.
So that's something we've talked about the Achilles a little bit, Dr. Williams, but obviously this is already something that is a little bit more straightforward as far as he had the injury, he needed the surgery, but how would you kind of advise him going forward? Because obviously he did maybe have an underlying issue, maybe not, whatever. Could have been pulling at the muscles there. But now he's going back out there and he's going to get hit by a truck again.
Yeah.
So he's going to get tested.
Yeah. So when it comes to recovering from injury or from a surgery or anything like that, then from my perspective, you want to look at maximizing the resources coming in and the old things going out. So in order to do any sort of construction project, one of the first things that you see show up is a dumpster, because they have to start taking out the old to put in the new. So you got to be able to clean out the old stuff and then replace it with good new stuff. So I would just make sure that things are, especially from a nutritional standpoint, make sure that there isn't any way that the old stuff can build up and that we run short on new stuff, because even the best construction crews are gonna suffer, and the project is going to slow down if they don't have anything to work with. If you stop delivering lumber, then that project is going to start to stagnate, and the same is true for healing from an injury.
I like that analogy. What about you, Dr. Liao?
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Nutrition, what you put in the body, is absolutely important. And I have a question for Dr. Williams. Looking at his website, you talk about fasting as a way to help with the body. We've been talking about nutrition a lot, talking about food a lot. So I'm curious about what your take is on the fasting and the benefits it has.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is, if the body doesn't have the burden of digestion and then to get rid of any of the waste products, if you're fasting, the body sort of has the ability to shut off all of those other things and kind of look around and go, okay, well, if we don't have that to do, what else can we do? and then it will be able to devote resources to things that maybe it wasn't able to devote resources to prior to that. So in a fasted state, you start getting into that autophagy stage where the body starts to be able to look at all of the old things that don't really belong, that can't really keep up, that shouldn't be there, and it has the resources and the energy to be able to devote to it, and then it starts to be able to clean house a little bit.
I like it. The whole idea of fasting is very intriguing to me. It fascinates me. Typically, historically, in millions of years of humans, it's all about trying to get enough food. But now we're talking about fasting as a potential benefit. I think that's very intriguing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we were all kind of in an intermittent fasting state when we were hunter-gatherers, because if you weren't successful, well, guess what? You were fasting that day. And so I think the human body really does well in some of those feast and famine kind of states, as long as it's done properly. But anecdotally, I've heard lots of stories of people that had injuries that just wouldn't seem to heal, and through fasting were able to make the change. They got to a point where after so long in a fasted state, their body said, okay, now what else do you want me to do? And it was able to look at some of these areas that it said, well, I can't touch that. I've got way too much on my plate. And when you take everything off, it goes, okay, now I'll do it. And it starts to heal.
That's a great point about how humans evolved with fasting by necessity. That's a great point. I generally think about that. And when you talk about fasting, like, how long are we talking about? Right? Is there a point where it's too much? How many days, how many hours are we talking about here?
Well, it depends on the individual, and it depends on the goal. If you were, I mean, I wouldn't jump into a long fast for anybody to begin with. I usually, if I'm going to coach somebody into fasting, I start with more intermittent fasting. Some of these more elite athletes, I would say, could do some extended fasting without a lot of preparation, just because they're already in pretty peak condition anyway. The average person, when I started fasting, I'm the type, like, I grew up, I didn't go more than like 2 hours without eating, and if I ever had to, it felt like the hardest thing I ever had to do. And so if you told me at any point in my life that I would be into extended fasts, the younger version of me, the 18-year-old me, would have said that's crazy talk. So I like to start with attainable goals and build up from there. So that's where I start with usually intermittent fasting, and then we just start dropping off meals, extending the fasting time and limiting the eating window.
You there, Dr. Liao?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I was thinking of when you guys were having that discussion that I was looking up, because I'm more familiar with this on the basketball side of things, but we do have this in sports a little bit, because I know Jaylen Brown did it. There's some other players, but we've apparently had a couple NFL athletes that have done this where they fast for Ramadan and then therefore have to play in games without it. I've always, when they do that, especially in football, I mean, basketball would be tough enough, but football, that seems like, because they have such a routine too. Obviously, like you were talking about, Dr. Liao, the focus is on the eating. A lot of times they're trying to bulk up in those nutrition rooms, and so to just have one guy that's sitting there drinking water, watching everybody else eat, and then going out there and having to play against all those guys that are fueled properly, that's got to be a daunting task.
Yeah, I had teammates who did the Ramadan thing because of their culture and religion. I played Ultimate Frisbee in college, and with Ultimate, you're out there for 6-8 hours playing multiple games. So I remember one of the players on the women's team, she would do the fast, which included no water. So that was a pretty big deal. It's sort of amazing to try to get through that kind of situation with no water even.
that does seem tough. I mean, there's obviously the religious reasons to do it, and I don't want to espouse any judgment on that, but it just would be tough for the actual competition to be doing that. So that's that's impressive when they can do it, because the folks that have done it fairly successfully. There's not a ton of examples, but in the NFL, NBA, haven't really had any problems based on that, at least not in the moment. Are there any other things you've got your eye on here for the Lions offseason, Dr. Liao, before we let you go?
Well, I'm working on my positional list right now, positional work for the training camp preview. The main concerns we talked about a little bit already is the safety position. Major concerns there with the starters and even some of the backups. There are a lot of healthy positions, though. Quarterback, wide receiver are looking very healthy. The main three guys we talked about, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, and Sam Laporta going forward. So we'll see how they do in training camp. But training camp's only 2 weeks away, so I'm looking forward to getting going on the season and seeing how things go.
I feel like we've given a pretty good injury segment here. You guys have done a great job covering this. I'm going to send you the waffle cutter here, Dr. Liao. So I've completed my task. You guys had the heavier lift, though, for the time. I just had to do one thing. You guys had to answer all those questions. But we appreciate you coming on, Doc, and tell the people where they can follow you for this coverage and all this stuff that you're working on currently.
Yeah, JimmyLiaoMD.com or on X Twitter at JimmyLiaoMD. You can also find me on Lions Wire. And my brain is trying to reconcile this whole French fry talk. Got me all hungry. And we're talking about fasting. So I'm really confused right now. So I need to try to sit down and try to reconcile how I'm going to deal with all these issues.
Over some French fries.
Yeah, I'll have some French fries, some gravy, poutine, chili fries. Yeah. Eat all that while I think about this fast.
Then you'll need to fast, yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, Doc. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to talking again soon once we hit camp here.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Doc. Thanks, Dr. Jimmy Liao. We appreciate him joining us. We're going to finish up with our other doctor in studio. Maybe he can give Aaron and I some advice. I think he was giving Aaron advice in the break when I went to the bathroom. So he's got plenty of advice for all of us, but we're going to close up the show after the break. Stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. More tips from Dr. Williams here in the breaks. Want to thank our sponsors, including Dr. Williams, who we'll finish up the show with, but want to thank him for his support and the guest host job that he's done. It's been a lot of fun to kind of cover this in a different way because, it is interesting to cover these injuries a little differently. There's a lot of talk about them. Not everybody likes it, but it's I think, fruitful to discuss some of this root cause stuff. But want to thank Dr. Jimmy Liao as well. Be sure to follow him for all the Lions-related injury news. And, Tim Selgo was great. So Mammoth Consulting, if you want to follow him, he's got a lot of great stuff. But we'll probably have him back on because all this NIL and gambling and all of the things that are going on, and it's going to be interesting to cover. But we want to thank Encore Business Group and EBG Auction House, Eric Hall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Williams Chiropractic sitting next to me, and Elite Winning Solutions. Keep an eye out for Shayne's camp on behalf of Elite Winning Solutions here this weekend. Eventually, I want to hook up Dr. Williams and Shayne, because Shayne has studied the body a lot for a player. I feel like he has been very focused on specifically the physiology, being a kicker who's also studying the mental part of the game. But when he gets into, he'll start throwing leg muscles at me that apparently I have, but I'm not aware of them. Apparently I use them every time I walk or sit or whatever. But he'll start talking about certain parts of the leg and the way it's constructed and how to lift with it and how to do all of that. So eventually we'll have to cover that, because he spent a long time trying to figure that out as a guy that did have longevity in the NFL. He played for 15 years and he played for 10 teams. That's a record. He doesn't like that record, but I think it shows longevity. It's like we were talking about earlier, Dr. Williams, it shows that he was able to stand the test of time.
Yeah, it definitely does. Anytime you can be at that level for an extended period of time, it says that you're doing something right.
And he's focusing on the nutrition. I can tell now. I think he ate pretty well during his career too, but he's been more, I think, in the carnivore realm of the diet here, and so he's staying in good shape to kind of advise these young kickers. But speaking of advice, what? Let's talk about your practice a little bit and kind of how the process works for the uninitiated and for the people that are interested in seeing you after all this great talk here today.
Yeah. So what I would say, the sort of the spot where I find myself in my practice is that we start looking at things that don't really seem to have an answer. So if you are struggling to figure out why things are the way they are, gotten a lot of we don't know, we didn't find anything kind of answers or lack thereof, that's kind of where I come in. And so being able to look at things more from, like I mentioned earlier, more of like the dysfunction side. We're looking at, if we already have ruled out disease and somebody's still not feeling good, what is it? Well, there's a big gap a lot of times between disease and dysfunction. And that's where I come in. So I start to analyze the dysfunction and say, well, what is it? Is this a musculoskeletal issue that's dysfunctional? Is it more on the internal side that's dysfunctional? Do we have a digestive issue? Do we have the ability to bring in and process the food that we're eating? Are we able to digest it in a way that allows it to be absorbed into the body? And can the body use it once we do that? If we do that, can we eliminate the waste? And if we can do that, what else might be being disrupted in the body? But in a lot of cases, that's where I start, because you can't really ask the body to do any changing if it doesn't have the resources and it can't get rid of the waste.
That was from what you told me, kind of how you discovered this in the first place, where you would kind of have similar cases and you would do a similar fix and then say, well, wait a minute, there's other factors here. I fixed this back very similarly. It's back in alignment and everything's good. And nobody played football or anything like that or got hit by a car. And so I've got to figure out why this is different, because it should be at least more similar.
Right. Yeah. And because if things are in place, if you look at a spine and everything is where it should be after an adjustment, and someone comes back shortly thereafter and says, well, now it isn't, something changed. And if you can't tie that back to a physical injury and say, well, it was pushed or pulled out of place from something acting on the body, then the answer is that something was acting in the body to pull it or push it out of place. And that's what was tripping me up in practice early on for a long time, is that I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that was part of the equation. And so I was always trying to figure out from the outside in, okay, what was it? Where is it that this is coming from? And the answer was always, it's not there. It's not outside, it's inside. And that's where the ability to assess the digestive system, the elimination system, and the rest of the internal parts of the body, and be able to look at some of those things and say, well, here's where we're out of balance. Here's where things are dysfunctional. We can't bring things in well. We can't get rid of things well enough. We can't make the parts and pieces that we need from these raw materials, or whatever the case is. And the body's always going to stay stuck in that same pattern, either the same or worse, if you can't understand that and start to correct it.
It's like I said, it's really helped me, and I definitely recommend it for those people that are interested in the services. Where can they go? I know you've already gotten one hit on your website because Dr. Liao was on it in the segment.
Excellent. Yeah, so it's williamschiropracticgr.com is the website. It's a great place to find info about the practice, about the things that we do. I mentioned the integrated urinalysis panel. It talks about that. It talks about the zone adjusting that I do and the way that I analyze the body, and gives you a great, easy access portal to schedule appointments also.
definitely check him out. We appreciate you coming on the show and spending so much time with us, because it's great education, and I encourage people to check it out. But appreciate you coming on the show and covering all this with us.
It was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
And thanks to AA Ron for keeping us on track. We're not going to have fries anymore, I guess, after this. AA Ron, he's shaking his head, but maybe as a cheat some of the time. But appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to tune in to the rest of the Jethro lineup here. We've got Conrad going during the day tomorrow, and then Rowdy Yates in the evening. Then we've got the morning grind, then leading into the sports project 10 to 12 with the sports professor. Then we've got polka pops and polka overtime. And then we've got I think what would be the 102nd show for Jeff Isaac's All Request show. He just had his 100th, and then he had a cookout that I unfortunately missed. He still won't play Enya, but he played it on my show. So maybe I can get him to play Enya at some point. But then more Polka Pops on Sunday. The Sports Project will be also on Wednesday from 7 to 9. Then we've got Sports Intel 7 to 9 with me, and then we'll be back next week. We'll be without Shayne again, but we'll have a great lineup for you 7 to 9. But thanks for kicking it with us, and we'll talk to you next week.